Welcome back. I'm Gila Ross, author of Living Beautifully and host of the Power podcast, where we share short, relatable ideas to impact and upgrade your everyday life. What's kind of the most important thing to work on in life? Why is it important to know which one it is? Why can't we just work on everything?
Everything everywhere all at once, because we're limited beings.
And I think there come certain points in either the year, for example, we're coming up to Rosh Hashanah, and the high holidays is a time of introspection, and oftentimes, a time where we set New Year's resolutions, or sometimes things happen in our life and we kind of feel inspired to work on something, and it's sometimes we can get lost in like, but what do I do? Right? Like, great, I want to take on something, but what do I do? So this is what we're going to look at today. Okay, here's where it goes. He said to them, who's this he? It's Rabbi Yochanan. We'll talk about who Rabbi Yochanan was in a moment. He said to them, go out and discern what is the proper way to which a person should cling. Rabbi Elazar says, a good eye. Rabbi Yeshua says, a good friend. Rabbi Yossi says, a good neighbor. Rabbi Shimon says, one who considers the outcome of a deed. Rabbi Elazar says, a good heart. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said to them, I prefer the words of Rabbi Elazar ben Arach to your words, for your words are included in his words. So, who was Rabbi Yochanan? Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was a rabbi who was a leader of the Jewish people towards when the temple was destroyed, right? So he was a leader of the Jewish people at a very difficult time in Jewish history. And a few interesting things about him is that he had incredible foresight of, like, while the Jews were going through the destruction of the temple and the exile, he was able to like strategize of how they're going to continue Judaism, right? And
First temple?
the second temple. And he was someone who had tremendous empathy for other people. For example, he taught that someone who steals a sheep, for example, versus someone who steals an ox, which one is worse, stealing a sheep or stealing an ox?
The ox,
Why?
because it's bigger, it can feed more people.
Okay, so the value of it is more.
But it also does the work of a lot of people.
That's right.
Okay, so it's much more valuable. What's interesting is he spoke about the penalty for someone who steals, right? And he said that someone who steals a sheep only has to pay back 4 times the value of the sheep, whereas someone who steals an ox has to pay back the 5 times the value of the ox. Why? Why the discrepancy? So he taught, because when a person steals a sheep, they have to pick up the sheep and carry it away, right? Which is a little bit embarrassing. And that act of embarrassment acts as a bit of a penalty, and therefore their penalty is reduced, right? Whereas someone who steals an ox, right, it doesn't necessarily look like they're doing anything wrong, because they can just, I don't know how it's done, but they just walk the ox off the thing. But what he taught us there was that there's both is wrong, right? No one's condoning stealing. I want to make that very clear. But he's showing that when someone suffers embarrassment, that in itself acts as a little bit of a penalty for what they've done, right? So he had tremendous empathy for other people. Interestingly, just before he passed away, he was with his students and he was teaching them, like, kind of his parting words before he passed away. And he says to them, he gives them a blessing. He says, may your fear of God, may you fear God. What do you think about that?
That's a lot.
It's a lot. And it's interesting because, his students, I think, turned around to him and said, what do you mean? Surely we should fear God more than what we fear other people. But if only it was as much as people, right? Just think about, in our lives, right? When we do something wrong, usually what's the first thing that comes to mind? It's not like, oh my goodness, what's God going to say about it? It's, oh my goodness, are other people, will I get caught? Are other people gonna notice? What are other people, gonna think of what happened, right? So he was saying, like, practically, we all fear other people, right? That is something that we all do. We worry about what other people are thinking of us, and we worry about how other people are going to perceive our actions. And we should try and translate that into a fear of God as well. And one last thing I'll tell you about Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai is he also, another interesting teaching that he taught is he said that someone who studies a lot of Torah shouldn't take credit for it. Which is a little bit of an interesting thing if you think about it, because if you do good, right, you study Torah and you should feel good about yourself, right? Like, why is he saying don't take pride in it?
I guess the first thing that comes to mind is like the people, the type of personality that allows someone to become a cult leader. If you think so highly of yourself, then that can be detrimental to other people. So if you think so highly of yourself, then you can become very egotistical, and that can be a slippery slope to becoming someone that manipulates others and isn't doing things in like the general good of human nature.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, I think that's a very good point, that, you know, a lack of humility can cause a lot of damage in human relationships. And I think what he was also kind of teaching us here is that Torah has a humbling effect on a person, should have a humbling effect on a person, right? Sometimes you can learn a little bit of Torah and you can feel great about yourself. But hopefully someone who's studied a lot of Torah understands that, hold on a second, yes, I'm studying Torah, but God gave me the capabilities, God gave me the opportunities, right? Just like a bird doesn't feel proud of itself for flying because it recognizes that, you know, it was given wings and it's using those wings to do what it should do. Someone who studies a lot of Torah is hopefully comes to a place where they're able to recognize that, you know what, I'm doing what I should be doing, right? I'm taking the abilities and opportunities that God has given me, and I'm using it for what they're supposed to be used for. So what does he tell his 5 students? So his 5 students are going to become the future leaders of the next generation after he passes away. So he tells them, he says, go and see, right? He doesn't just say, ask them what's the best trait, right? He says, go and see. Why is he telling them to go and see? Because you could look at this Mishnah, you could look at this passage and say to yourself, that's great. You know, it's 2025. These are rabbis. What do they have to say that's relevant for my life, right? The rabbis are debating what holy, esoteric, you know, pathway that a person should pursue in life, right? But what does it have to do with me as a regular person living my life? So that's why it prefaces it and it says, go and see. Right? Go out from your sheltered, limited, you know, perspective and see what's the best pathway for a regular person to pursue. So what's the first one that
They said a good eye.
So Rabbi Elazar, who was Rabbi Elazar? So Rabbi Elazar ben Hyrcanus was a rabbi that only came to Torah study later on in his life. He was in his before he started studying Torah. And they said about him that he was like a cistern that doesn't lose a drop of water, right? He had kind of like a flawless memory. He remembered everything that he learned, right? And so what does he say? He says, what's the pathway that a person should pursue is to have a good eye. Now, what does it mean to have a good eye?
To see the good in others and in the situation.
Beautiful, to see the good in others and in the situation.
Judge favorably.
Judge favorably, beautiful. Anything else? I think it's also when someone has a good eye, they're able to allow other people to have success without feeling threatened by it, right? You know, like very often when someone is successful or has good things in their life, and it can be hard to watch that, right? When a person has a good eye, they're able to kind of look at other people's good fortune and feel happy for them, right? Which is a trait that we have to develop. I don't think it's something that necessarily comes naturally for us. It's not natural that if you watch kids, right, and one kid has a nice toy, the other kids aren't saying, oh, you know, I'm so happy you have that nice toy, right? They're more likely like, I want that or whatever. We as human beings, our natural reaction is like, if we see someone else have good fortune, we want it, right? To have a good eye means to be happy that someone else has good fortune. How do we develop that trait? How do we develop, the trait of having this eye that kind of sees the good in other people, that, is happy at other people's good fortune, sees the positive? Yes, Rachel.
I think at least for the sees the positive and the allowing others to have success and not be threatened by it. I feel like it's trusting that you have what you need and you're given what you need at the time that you need it. And I think
That's
which-
gratitude.
yeah, gratitude and I think that affects your attitude towards life is like it's not like this rat race of trying to get to the top. It's I have what I have and I don't need to look at others to try. I feel like when people don't have a good eye, they're like almost like taking or trying to take instead of being like, no, I'm happy with my lot.
Yeah, and I think it's a little bit different than gratitude, and because you can be grateful for what you have and still, want what other people have, but there's a contentment that comes from recognizing, and it's a trust. It's a trust in God thing, right? That I trust that God has given me exactly what I need, right? And what I need might not be what I want. It might be very, very different than what I want. But I trust that everything that I need, I'm given, and God is giving me, and everything that is supposed to be mine is mine, right? No one else can take something that's supposed to be mine. No one else can take the house, the car, the job, the friends, the whatever it is that I want in my life. If I'm supposed to have it, I am going to have it. No one else can take that, and someone else's success doesn't threaten me because it's literally nothing to do with me, right? I have my allotment from Hashem, from what God wants me to do with my life, and other people have theirs, and it like I don't have to look at it in a way that's kind of like, oh, but I want that, because if I needed that for me to fulfill my mission in life, then I would have that. All right. Let's move on to the second one. What is the second one? A good friend. So firstly, who was Rabbi Yeshua? Rabbi Yeshua was one of the other rabbis. And about him, it was said, praiseworthy is the one who gave birth to him. And it's a praise on the rabbi, on Rabbi Yeshua, because it was saying that people who saw him recognized his good character and praised his mother for it. And it's interesting, actually, that we're told that his mother, when she was pregnant with him and when he was very, very little, when he was newborn, she would take him to the Beit Midrash, to the synagogue, so that he would be immersed in the sounds of Torah, right? So that's kind of who he was as a rabbi and a person. And what does he say? Is he says, what should a person work towards being a good friend? What does it mean to be a good friend?
To accept the other person how they are,
Okay.
to be happy for them when good things happen to them, even if those same good things, you're not in the same place. And to lift them up when they need help.
Anything else?
Like a mentor?
It's interesting because I think there's a different place for mentors and friends. Right, like I think the Pirkei Avot and other places talks about like having a mentor and having a rabbi or someone like that in your life, but here it's talking about chaver tov, right? To be a good friend.
I think a good friend though can be similar to a mentor where they push you to do better.
Yes, and I think that is they can do it in different ways, but I think that's one mark of a good friend is a good friend is someone who brings out the best in us and who also tells us what we need to hear, right? Not necessarily what we want to hear, right? We have that sort of relationship where they're able to tell us things and we're able to listen to what they're saying and vice versa. Okay. So let's move on to Rabbi Yossi the Kohen, right? So Rabbi Yossi the Kohen was described as scrupulously pious. What does it mean to be scrupulously pious? So I'll share with you a story from someone else that kind of gives us a snapshot on what does it mean to be scrupulously pious. So Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky lived in pre-war Europe. And one day he went to the post office to get some stamps. And the postmaster was known as a cynic, not particularly a friend or a lover of the Jews. And he gives him change, and Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky takes a change, goes home. And when he gets home, he realizes that the postmaster gave him too much change. And so what does he do? He decides, you know what, I'm going to go back and give him the extra change. It wasn't a lot of money, but I'm going to go back and give him the extra change. He didn't have to. He's going above and beyond the letter of the law in the country, in Judaism for sure. He goes back and he gives him the change. What's fascinating is that later on there was the war, and this postmaster was instrumental in saving many Jewish lives. And Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky was convinced that the reason why he went on to be a savior for so many Jewish people, was because of the incident in the post office where Rabbi Yaakov was decided to go above and beyond and go back and give him the change. And I think that's kind of what it means when a person's scrupulously pious it's there's things, we do things because we have to, whatever, but sometimes we can go above and beyond for someone else, right? Someone needs a little favor and you don't have to do it, but you decide to go and do it. And what I think the story illustrates is you never know what the impact of that action is going to be when you never know what's going to happen down the line. So what does Rabbi Yossi ben the Kohen says? He says a good
Neighbor?
what's the difference between a friend and a neighbor?
I think it's gotta do a lot with proximity. There's a saying, I can't remember the first part of it. Intimacy breeds contempt,
I thought it was familiarity breeds contempt.
familiarity.
It's interesting because in some ways our neighbors can get to know us better, right? Then I once read a meme that said, I yelled at my kids to brush their teeth so loud that all my neighbors' kids went to brush their teeth. What's the point of it is that with a friend you can put on a show. Our neighbors get to know us, right? They get to know because they live in such close proximity to us, as Jackie was saying, they live in such close proximity to us. They get to know us really well, right? They get to know our habits and our routines, and we can rely on them. And that's why being a good neighbor is also, because of the proximity, they can actually help grow and become better people because they know us, right? In a way that perhaps sometimes our friends may not know us, right? Our friends may not know how, punctual we are with taking the garbage out, but our neighbors know that, right? Our neighbors know all these things about it. So what he's kind of saying is what's important is to be a good neighbor, right? Because you have that opportunity living in proximity towards other people to develop that relationship again, where we can kind of be there for each other and be there in a way that propels us forwards. Any thoughts, any questions? All right, so let's move on. And there's a glitch in the translation. So the next one is Rabbi Shimon ben Asana. Right, so what does Rabbi Shimon ben Asana say? Haroe et hanoled, who's one who literally it means one who sees the future. But what he's telling us here is one who considers the outcome of an action. Right, one who can sort of visualize the outcome of an action. Why is that such an important trait to develop? Why is that such an important thing?
Think before you act.
Yeah, and even he's saying go a step further than just thinking, but visualize, right? Because sometimes you see this with kids as well, right? Some kids you tell them like don't throw the ball in the house and they don't throw the ball in the house, right? Other kids you tell them don't throw the ball in the house and they got to try it out until they actually break something. They're gonna keep playing the ball. Why? Because they can't visualize, right? The kid that stops right away because you tell them don't throw the ball in the house because you can break something, they visualize that, you know what, maybe something can get broken. Whereas the kid who doesn't stop until they actually break something, they haven't been able to visualize it. And this idea of being able to visualize the outcome of our actions is such a powerful thing because, and I think we discussed this like a few weeks ago, the idea that every action that we we do has a consequence, right? It has a trajectory that it sends us on our life. And if we're able to kind of visualize, like, where is this action going to take me? Right? How far, is it going to take me closer to where I want to be, or is it going to take me further away? Then it can be a very powerful way of helping us move forward in life. So that's why what he was saying is that is the most important thing for a person to do is to visualize the outcome of our action. Okay, there's one more. What did Rabbi Elazar ben Arach say? So Rabbi Elazar ben Arach says a good heart. What does it mean to have a good heart?
To think wholesome, clean thoughts all the time. As much as you can.
To be kind and empathetic.
Kind,
Sympathetic.
empathetic, yes. And I think also like the heart is like the control center of our emotions, right? And it's kind of allowing ourselves to run our emotions more than allowing the emotions to run the show, right? To kind of be able to be there for other people, be in control of how we channel our emotions, right? So what them? He says, and by the way, before we go into it, and you probably heard it already, any thoughts on which one's your favorite?
A good heart.
A good heart?
a good-
Yes, so Belinda?
A good friend.
I like a good eye.
Was one of the options to like not be jealous of other people, to appreciate other people's successes without wanting them?
Yeah, that's a good eye.
I like the good eye.
Okay.
Me too.
I like the good heart.
Okay, so this is what he says. He says, I prefer the words of Elazar ben Arach to yours, for his words include all of yours. So what he says is, a good heart encompasses all the rest, right? A person who has a good heart is someone who is able to appreciate other people, appreciate the positivity, be grateful for, be happy for other people's success, is able to be a good friend, able to be a good neighbor, is able to visualize the outcome of actions as well, because they're able to kind of slow down and think about what's gonna happen. So that's what he is saying. So if you were wondering what you should work on, we should work on all of it. But it looks like a good heart, right? Is a way for something for us to work on. So before we wrap up, does anyone want to share a takeaway that they have from this? Anything that sort of stuck out with you, resonated to you?
I'd like more detail about good heart. Like, how do you see that in action? Like, how do you describe working on something like that?
I feel like that's something that the empathy, it feels like working on empathy is working on a good heart, right? Because it encompasses all of the other things too. Like an empathetic person has a good eye, is a good friend, is a good neighbor, because they're empathetic to the needs of everyone around them, and they're also open-hearted to their emotions aren't ruling the show. You know what I'm saying? That makes sense. It's more of a feeling what other people are feeling.
I wonder if also the way of working on a good heart is by working on those other things as well, right? Is by visualizing the outcome of things and visualizing how is it going to impact someone else, what I'm about to do or say or think, right? Or having that mindset that I have what I need so I can be happy for someone else and their success.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. I'd love to hear your feedback, and if you enjoyed this episode, you'll love my book, Living Beautifully: How to Bring Meaning, Joy, and Love into Your Life, based on the timeless wisdom of Pirkei Avot. And please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss out. Have a wonderful day.